We've finally gotten to the point where Lucasfilm has exhausted all their franchises. Star Wars divided the fanbase and saw a massive decline in profits throughout the sequel trilogy. The shows are an entirely different mess. Almost every show has been a huge bait and switch to use beloved characters to push the characters they want to prioritize, even though nobody cares about them. Currently, as I'm recording this, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is sitting at $382 million worldwide on a budget of upwards of $300 million before even accounting for marketing or other costs. Hell, they even put out that god-awful Willow series that took a campy old movie and produced a cash grab show so awful it was removed from Disney+.
That is one big pile of shit.
What does any of that mean for the future of Lucasfilm? The obvious conclusion is that Lucasfilm is officially out of big legacy characters to milk for cash. They didn't have a large quantity to begin with. Lucasfilm always succeeded off of a quality over quantity approach, in my opinion. They've completely abandoned that and are now attempting to pump out as many shows and movies as possible. I don't need to tell Star Wars fans how many projects Kathleen Kennedy has announced that are most likely never going to happen. If I had to guess, the Rey movie and the Mandoverse movie are likely to happen, but after Indy 5's failure, everything is probably up in the air. The only reason those seem likely is that Kathleen Kennedy seems dead set on making Rey work, even if she has to burn Lucasfilm down in the attempt. And the Mandoverse movie would be a quick way to put a decisive end to that side of the universe so that they can move on to the post-Rise of Skywalker timeline, even though they claim to want products set in all eras. They've completely turned Star Wars into a streaming service franchise. We wouldn't have had 0 movies in the past 4 years if the sequels inspired confidence in the brand. Mandalorian had a strong start, but it's been declining since season 1, and with Dave Filoni's constant push to prioritize Clone Wars characters, we ended up with a show about Bo Katan. The one show they could have made that would have ignited fan excitement was a live-action Clone Wars with Anakin and Obi-Wan, since the actors were right there. But instead, we got the Obi-Wan show, which yet again showed us a broken, depressed old man who was a shell of his former self be led around and saved by his far superior leader, the little girl he was supposed to be protecting.
What a terrible joke!
The upcoming slate doesn't inspire confidence, and the fact is there seems to be no solid plan in place. They're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. One minute Kathleen Kennedy throws out the extended universe, the next we have a desperate last-ditch attempt to adapt Heir to the Empire with whatever shitty characters they have left.
Please, make it stop!
Then we have Indiana Jones, which was never a franchise that was ripe for spin-offs in its own universe, so all the potential for success lied within the mainline entries. Instead of a story of Indy's son picking up where he left off, we got an old, sad, pathetic, lonely Indy being led around by Kathleen Kennedy's latest self-insert character she wishes was a younger version of herself. With the way it bombed at the box office, we can only assume any further plans have been scrapped. But this is Lucasfilm we're talking about, so who knows what crazy hell in a spin-offs they have in mind. In all fairness, a lot of fans feel like Indy should have ended with The Last Crusade, so that isn't a franchise that should even have continued, making it hard to even garner support for any plans they may have come up with. But ultimately, greed wins over, and Lucasfilm couldn't help themselves, which left them with a tainted franchise.
All right, fine, it was about the money.
The big question is there even a way forward at this point? In all honesty, with the lack of original content coming out these days, it's tough to see Lucasfilm, of all people, coming out with anything good. They've ruined all that they had and killed most of the hype for any future projects or announcements about their legacy franchises. Original content is the only way forward for a company in their position, but nothing Lucasfilm has put out in the last decade tells us they have the creativity or passion to be able to come up with their own ideas. Again, original ideas are tough for modern day writers who actually have some talent. We're talking about Lucasfilm writers here, so there's basically 0% chance of that happening. Also, most of the goodwill Lucasfilm had with fans was brutally destroyed, and they did it with a smile on their faces as they insulted and berated fans. So it wouldn't even be surprising to see fans not be receptive to any new ideas coming out of their studio.
I hate this place.
There's this strange belief some fans have that if you like a brand or a franchise, you should just like everything they do. No matter what brand says or does, you like the brand. You like Star Wars, so they could do anything and you should just like it. Otherwise, you're not a fan. It's one thing for studios and writers to push this nonsense. They want to be able to prioritize their selfish desires over passion for the franchise in question, and it gives them an easy way to discredit the actual fans. They only care about writing products they want to see that makes them feel good. For fans to believe this bullshit is just pure idiocy. You're basically telling them you don't care if they put any effort into something, they have your money regardless, because the previous people who actually cared put out good products 30 years ago. Doesn't matter if the new stuff is any good or not, you just turn your brain off and support brand.
Special Officer Doofy reporting.
All this does is give Lucasfilm and other studios an all-access pass to bastardize the franchise any way they see fit, and for some reason as a fan you sit back and think, oh, I like brand, so I like anything with the brand name. If you have no standards, then you're going to get taken advantage of, plain and simple. It's beyond me why any fan wouldn't expect the writers and studios to have the same passion for the franchise that they do. Unfortunately, with Henry Cavill, we've seen what happens when someone in the industry actually cares about giving the fans accurate adaptations. They get labeled difficult to work with and blacklisted in the eyes of a lot of studios. Fans should expect these movies and shows to be done right or not done at all, instead of praising garbage products simply because they're part of a previously successful franchise. That's why we ended up with utter dog shit like Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett. In everything we do, whether it's dating or work, we have standards. How does it logically make sense to abandon that concept entirely when it comes to people that are responsible for writing the characters and stories we love?
The only power I have is that I believe we can do better.
So how does a studio move forward when they've pissed off their fans and seem creatively bankrupt? There's not a lot of great options and they have nobody to blame but themselves. They've spent years shitting on fans and then yelling at them for not enjoying the sludge they're pumping out, calling them every ist and phobe word they can think of, and even manufacturing their own controversies when there were none. It's truly hard to understand why fans will be annoyed when all their favorite characters' legacies are obliterated. What fan doesn't enjoy watching their favorite characters get berated and belittled? The fact that Lucasfilm still doesn't understand the issues fans have with their products is very concerning, because to even begin changing things, they'd have to understand what to change. Without that understanding, whether it's due to blissful ignorance or purposefully ignoring fans, they have no hope of turning things around.